to that place in us where we're not censoring ourselves or trying to do it good or right, but rather connect to whatever it is we're trying to.
Kevin Spacey.
Yes.
Also an Academy Award winner.
Yeah.
He does what I think is a pretty good impression of you.
Well, I don't. I have 5 or 6 movies I really think are the greatest. I mean, but I'd have to think about them.
You know Kevin Spacey? Yes. Also Academy Award winner. He does what I think is a pretty good impression of you. Well, I don't. Pacino doesn't flip tables or throw tantrums. He goes quiet. And when Pacino cuts you off, he cuts deep. And it was downhill after that because nobody else wanted me. Paramount didn't want me or Brando. For decades, Pacino's been the heartbeat of modern cinema. From Serpico to The Godfather, he's carried entire generations of storytelling on his shoulders. But behind the scenes, it wasn't always gold statues and curtain calls. He's walked away from directors, clashed with icons, and blacklisted co-stars quietly, permanently. He doesn't burn bridges, he buries them. Dog Day, Afternoon, Scent of a Woman, Heat. Pacino's performances aren't just intense, they are volcanic. But when the chemistry goes sour, that fire turns cold. And unlike some actors, Pacino doesn't do PR cleanups. If you made the list, you're not getting off it. This is too much. A huge connection. It was like overpowering me. I mean, it was so steady. He starred with De Niro, Nicholson, Brando, and Walken. But not all of them made it through unscathed. Here are the 6 actors Pacino quietly froze out. Why they got dropped and why it was final. Stick around because the last name on this list, even the director refuses to talk about it. William Six, the director he clashed with Friedkin. Al Pacino's first major directing partnership after the Godfather trilogy was with William Friedkin on Cruising 1980. A dark dive into New York's underground, but what began as creative synergy soon dissolved into professional contempt. Friedkin, fresh off the French Connection, expected Pacino to show up rehearsed, disciplined, ready. Instead, he arrived late with few lines learned, improvising in ways that clashed with Friedkin's meticulous style. The director later called him unprepared, disrespectful to the material. In a frustrated tone rarely seen, Friedkin said Pacino treated the set like a frat house. Pacino, strong-willed and visceral by nature, resented Friedkin's rigid control. He refused direction, insisting he knew his character better than anyone. Reports say Friedkin grew so exasperated he nearly fired him on multiple occasions. He later remarked of Pacino, "He was the biggest disappointment I've worked with." That quote landed like a punch. The tension was thick on set. Cast and crew recall late-night blows, shouting matches, and frustrated silences. Pacino, never one to back down, stood his ground, but isolation came instantly. He was never welcomed back into Friedkin's fold or contact list. Critics barely mention the spat today, focusing instead on the film's intense and controversial impact. But the truth lies in the blink and you miss it exclusions. No joint interviews, no Hollywood reunions, no collaborative buzz when either man pushed boundaries or earned accolades. Pacino worked again with younger directors who brought flexibility and trust, but he swiftly moved past Friedkin. Their only shared legacy now is a cult film overshadowed by buried bitterness. In Hollywood, collaborations are cinema's lifeblood. But when egos clash and respect fractures, that can end a career bond overnight. Take note, he was the biggest disappointment I've worked with. That's not an anecdote. That's a verdict. Al Pacino doesn't forgive sloppy. And William Friedkin learned that lesson the hard way. James Foley. 5. A personal fallout. When Glengarry Glen Ross hit theaters, critics hailed Al Pacino's performance as masterful, sharp, raw, and tightly coiled. But behind the camera, his relationship with director James Foley was far less celebrated. Foley, known for his precise visual style and preference for discipline on set, quickly found himself overwhelmed by Pacino's unpredictable energy. Pacino would shift tone mid-take, drop scripted lines, and often refuse to rehearse scenes the same way twice. Foley reportedly described it as exhausting, a constant tug-of-war between control and chaos. One crew member later recalled, Foley wanted tension. Pacino wanted fire. That balance nearly broke the set. While the end result was undeniably compelling, it was clear that neither man wanted a repeat experience. Pacino, who often develops long-term relationships with directors he respects, never worked with Foley again. Foley, for his part, never publicly criticized Pacino, but when asked in an interview if he'd direct him a second time, he answered with a tight smile. Some performances are best left once. The lack of public feud didn't mean there wasn't a divide. It just meant both men chose the silent exit. In an industry where second chances are currency, the absence of even a whisper of collaboration says everything. Their film was electric, but that electricity short-circuited any future between them. For Pacino, that's how it goes. When the rhythm's off, he doesn't fight to fix it. He walks away. Marlon 4, on-set chaos Brando. When Al Pacino landed the role of Michael Corleone in The Godfather, it changed his life, but it also brought him face-to-face with Marlon Brando, an icon Pacino both revered and quietly resented. Their chemistry on-screen was undeniable. Off-screen, far more complicated, Brando was already a legend. And when he showed up late to rehearsals, ad-libbed lines, or clashed with director Francis Ford Coppola, the studio let it slide. Pacino, then still an unknown, didn't get the same grace. The double standard gnawed at him. During award season, the tension peaked. Brando won the Oscar for Best Actor. Pacino, despite carrying much of the film, was nominated for supporting. Feeling snubbed and frustrated by Brando's outsized credit, Pacino boycotted the ceremony entirely. In a later interview, Pacino admitted, "I didn't think it was right. I was in that movie more than he was." That wasn't just a complaint. It was a window into a deeper rivalry. Over time, the two drifted apart. They never reunited on screen. And while Pacino never publicly attacked Brando, he also rarely praised him beyond polite admiration. For someone who shaped so much of his career, Brando became more of a shadow than a legacy. It wasn't open hatred, but it was clear disappointment tinged with envy, pride, and a lingering sense of injustice. In Hollywood, you don't always clash in headlines. Sometimes silence does the talking. And in Pacino's case, it said he may have shared the screen with Brando, but he never wanted to follow in his footsteps. Robert De Niro. Al Pacino and Too Much Ego. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino are often grouped together as cinematic giants, two actors who defined American film across decades. They've shared billing in The Godfather Part 2, Heat, Righteous Kill, and The Irishman. But despite all the shared screen time, their actual relationship has always been complicated. When Heat was filming in the mid-90s, everyone expected fireworks. It was their first scene together face-to-face. But behind the camera, they kept their distance. According to insiders, they barely spoke outside of takes. De Niro preferred preparation and quiet. Pacino wanted intensity, improvisation, and freedom. Director Michael Mann had to tailor his directing style around both of them, treating them like separate storms heading for the same point. Pacino once said, "Bob's a craftsman. I'm more instinct. We work differently." That wasn't a slight, but it wasn't warm praise either. The divide showed itself again on The Irishman. While both actors delivered layered, reflective performances, sources close to the set described a professional but cold energy between them. No laughing between takes, no bonding off-set. Scorsese reportedly acted as a buffer. Their few interactions in interviews often came off stiff. Pacino refers to De Niro as a colleague. De Niro, when asked about Pacino's process, gave a generic, "He's good at what he does." In Hollywood, you can feud openly or you can bury it under professionalism. With these two, it's the latter. No explosions, just decades of silence where friendship should have grown. When Pacino said, "We're not friends. We just show up," that wasn't just honesty, that was the quiet truth behind a legendary pairing that never really clicked. Michelle Pfeiffer, the coldest co-star. When Scarface was casting in the early 1980s, Michelle Pfeiffer wasn't a popular choice. She was still relatively unknown with just a few minor roles and a reputation that hadn't yet solidified. Al Pacino was already a powerhouse, and according to numerous accounts, he didn't hold back his skepticism. Pacino initially resisted the idea of Pfeiffer playing Elvira Hancock. He reportedly told producers she was too soft for the role, that she lacked the edge needed to play Tony Montana's icy, guarded love interest. During auditions, Pfeiffer later said she could feel his disapproval. "I knew he didn't want me there," she admitted in a later interview. "I had to prove I belonged in the room." She did. Her audition was so compelling that director Brian De Palma overruled Pacino's doubts. Still, the friction lingered on set. Pacino remained distant, reportedly keeping her at arm's length during the entire shoot. There were no warm-ups, no real bonding, just cold professionalism. Even after Scarface became a cult classic, Pacino rarely mentioned Pfeiffer in interviews. And while she always maintained her admiration for him, she never denied that their dynamic during filming was strained. Ironically, it was Pfeiffer who brought an unexpected vulnerability to the movie. Her Elvira was sharp, jaded, and tragic, exactly what the role demanded, but Pacino's resistance left a lasting mark. They never worked together again. Hollywood is full of what-if collaborations, but this one stands out: a legendary film, 2 brilliant performances, and a partnership that never had a second act. Because when Pacino draws a line, he rarely steps back over it. Gene Hackman, a Hollywood legend, but Al Pacino and Gene Hackman only worked together once, but that single collaboration on Scarecrow, 1973, was enough to spark years of subtle distance. The film itself was a critical success, with both actors praised for their stripped-down, human performances. But behind the scenes, things were far from smooth. Pacino was still on the rise. Hackman, fresh off the French Connection, had already proven himself as a leading man. Their personalities clashed almost immediately. Pacino was sensitive, method-driven, and introspective. Hackman was blunt, gruff, and preferred efficiency over exploration. Their energies didn't mix, they repelled each other. Pacino once hinted at the tension in a later interview: "Working with Gene, it wasn't the easiest. We had different ideas." That understated comment spoke volumes. On set, Hackman would reportedly challenge scenes, override direction, and express frustration with Pacino's pace. "He doesn't like wasting time," one crew member said. And to him, Al was wasting time. The tension never escalated to public outbursts or scandal, but it lingered. After Scarecrow, there were no more pairings, no public praise, and no fond recollections of working together. Despite Hackman's towering career and Pacino's evolution into an acting icon, their paths never crossed again professionally. In a business that thrives on second chances and legendary reunions, that absence speaks clearly. These were 2 legends, but ones who refused to share the stage more than once. Sometimes the most telling feuds are the quiet ones. Pacino didn't slam the door, he just never opened it again. Pacino's legacy is built on intensity, but also on instinct, especially when it comes to people. He's not loud about his fallouts, not interested in dragging names through interviews or headlines. He just closes the door, walks off the set, and never looks back. In an industry where feuds often become theater, Pacino's silence is the final cut. You don't hear the argument, you just notice who doesn't show up again. If you enjoyed watching this breakdown, make sure to like and subscribe for more stories behind the spotlight. And let us know in the comments which actor surprised you most on this list.